When things don't go as planned, and let's be honest, right? That's pretty often, growth minded people, growth minded teams say, hey, let's figure out what went wrong. Let's make it better next time. That is proactive accountability in action. Welcome to the Workforce Link podcast, where we're offering forward-thinking conversations for the workforce, linking employers and job seekers to a brighter tomorrow. I'm your host, Sundie Joe with the Central Workforce Development Region, and I am pumped to be hanging out with you for another episode of this podcast. In today's episode, we're going to dive into the brain science of accountability, why some people always seem to get things done, and how the rest of us can catch up to that. Have you ever had that one team member who just, gets it? They're the go-to, the reliable, the one you wish you could clone. It turns out there's some neuroscience behind why certain people are wired to operate with high levels of accountability. So if you're thinking already, well, guess what? This episode isn't for me. Here's the good news. These habits can be taught and they can be caught. So don't check out on me just yet. Before we dive in, though, I would love to ask you a favor. If you're enjoying the podcast, like it, share it, save it, all the things. This helps us stay visible, and we can't do it without you. So now, whether you're dodging emails, you're microwaving last night's leftovers, or you're pretending to work while scrolling, we're glad you're here. Let's get into today's episode. Okay, let's talk about Jennifer. Actually, let's talk about the Jennifer effect and why some people just nail it. So in a recent article by Chris Weller in Fast Company, we meet Marcus, who is a leader managing 8 direct reports. I'm going to share the link to the full article in the show notes too, so you can go back and read it. One of them, Jennifer, consistently crushes her work. She's clear, she's communicative, she owns her mistakes, she delivers every time. That's the kind of employee, right, that any boss dreams of. But the truth is, Jennifer's habits are not magical. They're learned cognitive behaviors, or as the article calls them, habits of mind. So we learn in this article that there are 3 key habits behind proactive accountability. There's syncing expectations, driving with purpose, and there's owning your impact. And I want to spend some time in this episode breaking those down. So let's start with number 1, sync expectations. So you've probably seen this happen. A manager expects one thing, the employer delivers something completely different. Suddenly there's all this confusion, this frustration, and then there's a breakdown in trust. But it's not just a communication problem. It's actually happening in our brains. Okay, so this fascinates me. Here's what brain science tells us. When we expect something to happen and it doesn't, our brain sends out this little alarm called a prediction error. And so it's basically our brain saying, hey, wait, that's not what I thought was going to happen. So that mismatch causes dopamine levels to drop, which then drains motivation and it ramps up frustration. But what happens when expectations are clear and actually met? Dopamine stays steady, and that helps us stay motivated, which helps us build trust. Isn't that fascinating? So neuroscientists call this predictive coding. Researchers like Carl Friston and Wolfram Schultz have shown our brains are wired to react this way. It's not just a gut feeling. It's how the brain literally works. It's so cool. Anyway, I'm a nerd. If you're a nerd and you want to nerd out on this a little bit more, I'm going to share the research to this in the show notes. So syncing expectations isn't just good management, right? It's chemistry, which I totally can't even wrap my head around trying to do chemistry in school. So the fact that I'm talking about it blows my mind. But this is the kind of chemistry I like. So one way to make this easier is using SSG communications. Succinct, specific, generous. Say that 3 times fast. Succinct, specific, and generous. So here's an example. Instead of saying, get me that report by end of day, say something like, email me that report by 5 p.m. Central and please attach it as a PDF. Succinct, specific, generous. It may feel like you're over communicating, but to the brain, it's just clear communication. Isn't that so powerful? So sync expectations, number 1. Number 2, drive with purpose. Okay. So Jennifer doesn't just get stuff done because she's talented, right? She connects her work with meaning. So whether it's contributing to the team, whether she's building a skill, whether she's serving a bigger mission, she finds the why, which if you've been part of this podcast for a while, you know I get excited about the why. So when people connect to work on purpose, they activate intrinsic motivation. And that's way more powerful than just chasing a paycheck or chasing a promotion, right? Like I said, we talk about this on the podcast all the time. When you lose your way, you lose your why. Again, we offer a free guide on that to help you find your why. If you want to check it out, I'm going to share the link to that in the show notes. But what's even more interesting to me is how they avoid cognitive bias. So those little mental shortcuts that our brains take that can lead us in the wrong direction. Instead of rushing through a task and missing details, they pause, they assess, and they make thoughtful decisions. Well, guess what? We all have them. Biases are our brain's way of saying, let me save you some time. But sometimes that shortcut, it skips over critical details and it ends up hurting the outcome. So people who consistently get things done, like Jennifer, our fictional Jennifer, they tend to pause. They ask more questions and they challenge their assumptions before jumping into action. Here's an example of this. Have you ever made a quick decision just to, check that box and move on? That's often due to something called the expedience bias, which, by the way, I am totally guilty of this. The brain's tendency to favor speed over accuracy. So it's like rushing through a report to meet the deadline, only to realize that you completely missed a key instruction. But accountable people take a beat. They resist the urge to just get it done fast, and they instead focus on getting it done right. Getting it done fast versus getting it done right. So what this does, this thoughtful decision making, it helps them avoid careless mistakes, deliver high quality work, and most importantly, maintain trust with their team or their leadership. So one way to build this habit, ask yourself before tackling a task, ask yourself, what assumptions am I making here? Do I fully understand the expectations? And is there anything I might be rushing past? Just those checkpoints can help rewire your brain to slow down and think with intention. And here's something you can try. So next time you assign a task, ask your team, what do you see the bigger purpose behind this? What do you see as the bigger purpose behind this? Or here's another question. How could this project help you grow? So you have to let them make it personal, right? Okay, so number 2, drive with purpose. Hey, if you're an employer listening in and wondering how to build a more accountable, well-trained team, don't forget, we've got resources to help you do just that. At no cost to you, the Central Workforce Development Region offers a wide variety of employer services, from job matching and consulting to tax credits, on-the-job training, registered apprenticeships, and more. One of our most powerful tools, on-the-job training. You can get reimbursed for up to 50% of wages while new employees get the training they need. And guess what? We handle the paperwork. Yes, really, we handle the paperwork. Or maybe you're ready to explore work experience opportunities where we cover wages and workers' comp while you help develop tomorrow's workforce. We also offer hiring event support, employee development tools, and even programs like Jobs League for young adults looking to gain real work experience. The bottom line, we're here to help you build a stronger, more skilled team without the red tape. Just reach out to your local Central Region Job Center or visit cwdregion.com/employer services to learn more. And I will share the link to that in the show notes. Number 3, own the impact. This one's not about being perfect. It's about learning from what worked and learning from what didn't work. So Jennifer doesn't pretend everything went great when it didn't. She sees both wins and she sees losses as feedback, not judgment, not condemnation. So this is the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. So a fixed mindset says, hey, I failed. I must not be good at this. Or if I mess up, people are going to think I'm not smart. I'm not capable. Well, what happens? When that happens, people start to avoid challenges, right? They hide their mistakes. They play it safe because if ability is fixed, every mistake feels like proof they're not good enough. That's the fixed mindset. But the growth mindset, somebody with the growth mindset says, okay, that didn't work. what can I learn from it? And they move on. Or they say, that mistake, just part of the process. I'm going to do it better next time. And they move on, right? So that mindset doesn't just sound better. It actually leads to better performance over time. Why? Because people who believe they can improve, guess what? They keep improving. That idea actually comes from the research of Dr. Carol Dweck, who's a psychologist from Stanford University. And she studied students and athletes, and she found that mindset had a bigger impact on long-term success than natural talent. Isn't that interesting? You can actually read her book, Mindset, The New Psychology of Success, and dive even deeper into that topic if you want. I will share the link to that for you in the show notes. Now, take that mindset she talks about into the workplace. When leaders and employees embrace a growth mindset, failure becomes feedback, not a threat. It becomes feedback, not a threat. That's so important. And they're more likely to reflect on outcomes, take ownership, and adapt their strategy. So when things don't go as planned, and let's be honest, right? That's pretty often, growth-minded people, growth-minded teams say, hey, let's figure out what went wrong. Let's make it better next time. That is proactive accountability in action. So proactive accountability shows up when things go wrong and we say, hey, I take responsibility. Here's how I'll fix it. And how can we do it better next time? And as leaders, we've got to model this kind of reflection because it fosters trust, right? It also tells our teams, mistakes don't make you a failure. Refusing to grow from them makes you a failure, right? Okay, so how do we go from having one Jennifer to building a full team of Jennifers? It starts by normalizing proactive accountability. So make these 3 habits part of your team's culture. Begin every project by syncing expectations, connect tasks to purpose, and reflect and learn from the outcome. You don't need clones, right? You need cloned habits. Big difference. And Jennifer's success isn't a fluke, right? It's a formula. And that formula is built on brain science and a little bit of intention. So fascinating. So if you're looking to raise the bar on your team's performance or your own performance, start with those 3 habits. And again, you can read the full article that I referenced today on Fast Company. It's written by Chris Weller. It's called 3 Cognitive Habits of People Who Get Things Done. I highly recommend reading it. Again, I'll share the link for that in the show notes. And that is it for today's episode of the Workforce Link podcast. I hope you're walking away with some fresh insight, maybe even a little brain science that'll help you or your team step into accountability with more clarity and more confidence. And hey, if you're an employer ready to build a stronger team, don't do it alone. Contact your local job center today. You can find your nearest job center or learn more at cwdregion.com/job centers. Again, I'll drop the link to that in the show notes for you so you can have easy access. And if you enjoyed this episode, consider subscribing, leaving a review, sharing it with somebody who could use a little encouragement in their work life. Have a great week, my friend, and we will meet again in the next episode. Until then, remember this. There's always a brighter tomorrow if you're willing to find it. The Central Region Workforce Development Board Incorporated and COPIC are equal opportunity employers and programs. Auxiliary aids and services are available upon request to individuals with disabilities. Missouri Relay Services at 711.